Hi guys, welcome back to my second video. Given the rapidly increasing promotion of Black Lives Matter, I thought I would do this video on a topic to challenge the stereotypically Eurocentric view that we tend to have of the world. Hence, this video will be a brief history of Ethiopia. I have researched the correct pronunciation of the words and names that I use in this video. If they are wrong, I'm very sorry, I'm doing my best. So, without further ado, let's get going. A brief history of Ethiopia. The Kingdom of Aksum was once described as one of the greatest powers of its day, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. It developed in the 1st century BC from various smaller communities made wealthy by rich agricultural lands, control of regional trade, and a lack of parasitic diseases that had decimated much of sub-Saharan Africa, and went on to achieve an international reputation before its decline in the 8th century. The kingdom's main exports of ivory and gold, especially to the Byzantine Empire, and Aksumite coinage found in Sri Lanka, show the extent and success of its trade. They also developed Africa's only indigenous written script, Ge'ez, a Semitic language which is still used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. In the 4th century, King Ezana adopted Orthodox Christianity. Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity shares many similarities with the Coptic Christian Church of Egypt. Despite the introduction of the Abrahamic faith, the indigenous polytheistic religion lived on, as did some of its associated customs. By 350 CE, the Aksumite Empire had established dominance over Himyar, now Yemen, Somalia, Nubia to the north, and various partially autonomous tribes. This is seen in the Aksumite king's title, Negusa Negast, meaning King of Kings. Aksum's tiny size in comparison to contemporary empires of Persia, Rome, and China is indicative of the importance of its position at the entrance to the Red Sea and its resultant control of the trade routes linking the Mediterranean and Asiatic worlds. King Caleb I secured Aksumite control over both sides of the Red Sea by invading Yemen in 625, supported by the Byzantines in response to the Yemeni king Yusuf Asar-Yathar persecuting Christians. By the 8th century, a lack of a centralized Aksumite administrative system in the face of competition for Red Sea trade networks from Arab Muslims led to decline. Despite this, the city of Aksum never lost its religious significance. In 960, the remains of the Aksumite kingdom were destroyed by Queen Gudit. Her descendants were later overthrown in 1137, thus establishing the Zagwe dynasty, which endured until 1270. Jebre Meska Lalibella's 11 churches, carved from a single stone, were built in response to the Muslim recapture of Jerusalem in 1187. The sheer number of these churches provide convincing evidence of continuity between the kingdoms of Aksum, Zagwe, and Abyssinia. However, in 1270, when Yakuno Amlak claimed direct descent from the biblical King Solomon of Jerusalem and Makeda, Queen of Sheba, he succeeded in overthrowing the Zagwe dynasty, thus establishing the Solomonid dynasty. Whilst there is no direct evidence to support his claim, it was certainly perpetuated to legitimize the royal house. The story goes that upon meeting, the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon fell in love and had a son, Menelik. Menelik later travelled to Aksum, carrying the sacred Ark of the Covenant with him, hence Aksum's religious significance. Since 1270, 2 traits were required of an Ethiopian king: that he could claim descent from King Solomon, who made a holy covenant with God, and that he had possession of the sacred Ark. The possession of the Ark gave rise to the feeling of being God's chosen people, and with Christianity was therefore key in legitimizing the political authority of 7 centuries of Ethiopian emperors. However, in the early 16th century, Abyssinia began to feel the threat of united Muslim neighbours, compounded by Abyssinians' lack of a centralized state system. The Oromo people took over southern Abyssinia, and its capital moved to Gondar in 1636, reflecting the decline of the empire. Effectively, the empire existed in name only until it began to revitalize in the 19th century. Under Menelik II, the empire was consolidated administratively and became a lasting political fixture of modern East Africa after the spectacular defeat of Italian forces at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. Menelik also intensified expansion into the Ethiopian plateau and the lowlands surrounding it, driven by the need for land to cater for a dense population. Its elitist regime allowed the focused mobilization of resources that strengthened the empire, meaning it remained one of only two, the other being Liberia, African states never to be formally colonized by a European power. The Ethiopian Empire survived until 1974, when the last emperor, Haile Selassie, was overthrown by the Soviet and All Ethiopia Socialist Movement-backed Derg. The coup was initially driven by university students connected to Marxist ideology, discontented with unanswered state issues such as widespread starvation and lack of opportunity. In 1975, the Derg abolished the monarchy and adopted Marxist-Leninist communism, and their leader, Mengistu Haile Mariam, assumed total power in February 1977. In April of the same year, he declared death to all counter-revolutionaries and threw bottles of red liquid into the crowd to symbolize the first wave of the Red Terror, a violent political repression campaign. By the mid-1980s, famine, intensified by chronic drought in 1983–85, as well as economic decline ravaged the country, increasing anti-Derg support, and various opposition groups joined Eritrean separatists who had been fighting their war of independence since 1961. Despite re-establishing themselves in 1987, the Derg were defeated in May 1991 in Eritrea, and President Mariam fled. The Eritrean War of Independence was ended on the 4th of June 1991 by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. The civil war left 1.4 million people dead, 1 million due to famine and the remainder due to conflicts and violence. And in 2006, 72 Derg officials were found guilty of genocide. After border disputes with Eritrea escalated into full-scale war in 1999, it was not until 2018 that peace was finally agreed. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned something new. I definitely did. If you were interested in the part about Eritrean independence, I really recommend Refugee Boy by Benjamin Zephania. It's one of those books that manages to be both heartbreaking and heartwarming, and it's a fantastic read. Please like, comment, subscribe below, and I'll see you next week.